The real deal Holyfield represents the traditions of my family's cooking all in one taco, with the barbecue being from my father's side and the Tex Mex coming from my mother's side. And that combination together is a true representation of what Valentina's is. My name is Miguel Vidal. I am the chef, owner, and pitmaster at Valentina's Tex Mex BBQ here in South Austin off Menchaca Road. I'm from San Antonio, Texas originally, and I've been around barbecue for as long as I can remember. I grew up starting fires for my father when he was on his way home from work. It's just something that was always around. I've also been around Tex-Mex my entire life. I remember being 5 years old and rolling tortillas out for my grandmother, always around tripas and guisada and homemade flour tortillas and all that good stuff. I remember going back home one day and just putting a slice of brisket that my dad had made in a tortilla that my mom had made. And while I'm eating it, I look up at my dad and say, "You can't get food like this in any restaurant." It was that defining moment at my parents' house eating dinner with them, because the Tex-Mex flavors and barbecue really complement each other. I have my grandmother, my mom, and my father all here in this dish. And I wanted to be able to share the deliciousness that my family had and bring that to everyone else. We get our brisket from Hartley Ranch, which is a local ranch to northwest of Waco. I like this brisket because it's 100% grass-fed and has a lot more marbling that can withstand the long, slow cook. The first thing we do is we trim the brisket. We're looking for aerodynamics. We're looking to be able to create a nice, smooth, even brisket so it can cook very nice and even in the pit. Into a bowl, we add salt, pepper, and our Valentina's dry rub. We oil the brisket with olive oil. We oil one side, flip it over, do the other. When we season the brisket, we season from up high. We let the season fall onto the brisket gently. We do that so it doesn't get super caked onto the brisket. We flip it over, we sprinkle the other side. Once again, making sure to get all surface areas so we can have a nice even crust. So when you slice and we cut the brisket, you're not getting uneven flavors. We set them in our smokers and they go always fat side up. Once the briskets are cooking maybe 2/3 of the way, 8 to 10 hours, we wrap in foil. The reason why we use foil is because I'm using mesquite wood. Mesquite's a little more harsh. The foil protects the brisket a little bit from being over smoked. Once we wrap the brisket and put it back on the pit to finish cooking, we will let it go for 4 to 6 hours, then we come back, and once we recognize that the brisket is ready, we do it to touch and to feel. We make sure there's some nice buoyancy to it, not too soft, yet we don't want it too firm. It will come off the smoker and it will rest for another 4 to 6 hours until we're ready to slice for service. I use pinto beans because my mom used pinto beans, and that's kind of what I grew up around. We add pinto beans to the pot, then we add water. We let them soak. We let the beans absorb that water. We do that so they can cook a little bit quicker and it can produce a nice gravy. We add onions, serranos, bacon, and bacon lard, and that's for the flavor. Once it starts to boil, we'll turn the flame down to like a medium, cover them, and we'll let them simmer for about 2.5 hours. We're looking for most of the water to evaporate, but still have a nice gravy that's been produced from the natural starches of the beans, along with the bacon and the onions and all that good stuff gets to cook down in there. Once the beans are cooked, we add our salt, pepper, and garlic to the finished beans. I do it that way because that's how I grew up with my mom making them, so that's how we finish them off. We'll take the chado beans and we'll turn them into refried by putting them in a pan over heat, and we smash them. We're looking for a nice, smooth, creamy texture out of the beans. We use homemade flour tortillas here. It represents white bread and barbecue for Mexican Americans, and it's able to withhold and withstand the heaviness and the weight of the protein. In a bowl, we add flour, salt, baking powder, lard, and warm water. I've been making tortillas since I was a young kid. You're looking to knead the dough. You want to get all the flour off the edges as much as possible. You're looking for the dough to form together and have a nice, soft, elasticy texture to it. We knead the dough, we let it rest, we cover it with a warm towel. We let the glutens all kind of come together. Once the dough has rested, we will roll into individual dough balls, and we're looking for 58 to 60 grams. That's the size, and that produces a nice, thick 6-inch tortilla. We toss them in the flour, put them through the press, It produces about a 6-inch tortilla that's anywhere from about 1/8 of an inch to a 1/4 inch thick. They go straight onto the comal. We're looking for them to cook in under 5 seconds. We flip and we wait for it to puff up and rise. Once the tortillas come off the comal, you have a nice cooked tortilla that has a little bit of char from the comal. That's the one thing about great flour tortillas that are homemade. When they're cooked, you can still feel the flour on them, so that's how you know they're the real deal. The Real Deal Holyfield has sliced brisket is a true representation of Texas barbecue. It represents our food and our family. The first thing we do is we add oil to a pan, make sure it's hot. We crack the egg, we cook the egg, we add salt and pepper. We flip once, let it finish cooking to about an over easy, and then we add more salt and pepper. Once the egg's ready, we pull it off. Now it's time to start building the taco. We add a flour tortilla that's fresh off the press to the boat. We add the refried beans first. The refried beans we'll add as a glue to help hold the taco together. We put the potatoes down. So now you have nice crispy potatoes that have been pan fried on refried beans. The next step is to add the egg. The egg is the center layer. We add the bacon, then we cut a nice fat slice of brisket. We add the thick slice of brisket on top of the bacon. Then we add our tomato serrano salsa. And once everything is layered together, that's the Real Deal Holyfield taco. If you've never had the Real Deal Holyfield, you're gonna get great smokiness from the brisket. You're gonna get a nice crisp from the bacon. You're gonna have this natural sauce that comes from the salsa that we put on. You're gonna get a little heat there, but then the egg yolk itself will produce nice creamy and richness to the taco. And you're gonna get nice pepper and a lot of the bacon and rendered lard from the beans. I think all those combinations together make this complete meal that you only need one to get you started on your day. I love this dish because every time we make it, it reminds me of my father. My father's favorite dish was the huevos rancheros, and his favorite thing to do was barbecue. So when I put this in front of him, he was able to enjoy the best of both worlds, and so every time we serve it, I always think of him. This dish is special to me because it reminds me of home. I created something that I wanted to share with people that would remind them of the same thing. So this is very comforting and it reminds me of how I grew up eating. And I hope to have other people feel the same way.